What if the secret to success wasn't just talent or hard work, but unshakable confidence? Welcome to Grasp Confidence, the podcast where visionary thought leaders, speakers, and entrepreneurs unlock the mindset and strategies for lasting success. I'm your host, LaFon Gooch, CEO, two-time best-selling author, and international TEDx speaker, and I can't wait to help you step into the most powerful version of yourself. Let's dive in. What if success that you're building is bigger than the capacity you've developed to hold it? Today on Grasp Confidence, I'm joined by Brent Perkins, former 7- and 8-figure entrepreneur, Inc. 5000 leader, and author of Papercuts. After losing his marriage and health at the peak of his success, Brent now teaches leaders how to expand their capacity so success doesn't cost what matters most. This matters deeply to me because in my next book, From Calling to Confidence, it is built around this truth. If you're ready to level your leadership up and grow without burning out, this episode is for you. Brent, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, Tara. Really, really nice to be here this morning.
Absolutely. Well, this is exciting. This is a conversation I've secretly been geeking out over to have for a while, right? And I love this topic of expanding our capacity because, as you know, after building massively successful companies, which I do want to talk about, we can quickly lose it all if we don't have the capacity to hold and sustain the success, right, Brent? I would love to hear a little bit about your background story and just tell us what that was like.
Yeah. I mean, to tee it up, this is a journey where I find most of us that are driven entrepreneurs, business owners, founders, leaders, and that could be in communities too, right? It doesn't have to be just in business. Most of the time, at some point in our journey, we get caught in this performing trap because it made us the money. It got us the partner. It pushed us through the tough situation, right? And that's where developing capacity is the pathway to going from performing to living. So that's this arc we're going to talk about today. And a lot of us, and me included, for the first 40 years of my life, I didn't realize I was just a performer, almost like just a member of a circus act. And I didn't, number one, see myself in that, and two, had no idea how to get out of it, right? And capacity is the answer to that. So
Okay, somebody's listening to this, right? And they're saying, Brent and Tara, I'm glad you guys are excited about this, but what does capacity mean? Let's break it down even a little simpler because, people are hearing the performance and I think they understand what that means, right? They maybe feel like they've been performing on a stage or on social media, right? Sharing their highlight reels in life. But they're saying, okay, I think I get that, but what is capacity? What does that mean?
So I'm going to tell you, but not yet. And there's a reason why.
Don't leave us hanging.
Capacity, it really could mean a lot of things depending on your situation. I do have a specific definition of what I kind of fits into the model I believe is one way to shift out of where we've been. So it's a healthy way to look at it. Okay. But so often we look at capacity as being time, right? And that is what it is absolutely not, right? Time and capacity are not the same thing. So we're going to come back to that. Okay. What I want to tee up first is that, who's ever, as you're listening to this and you reflect on your own journey, I find a lot of us leaders, we at least strive for, especially those of us that are parents or those of us that are, 10, 20 years into this leadership journey, we strive to be servant leaders, right? We want to give back. If we're doing this in a healthy way, many of us will raise their hand and be like, I am a servant leader. I am selfless. I give back. I pull people forward. Like I'm doing this for things bigger than myself. And if you heard in there, I use the word do. And I look at this as the doing axis, right? If we say, okay, on the left side of this x-axis, this horizontal axis of doing is selfish, and the right side is selfless. Most of us are ready to be like, sometimes I'm selfish, but most of the time I strive to be in this selfless place. That's how I show up. True. Okay, great, fine. And we forget that there's also a y-axis. There's a vertical axis here, and that's the being axis. Who are you being while what are you doing? And if the left side of the doing axis is selfish and the right side is selfless, the bottom of the being axis is self-poor and the top is self-rich. And so more often than not, when I talk to leaders about this, they end up placing themselves in this bottom right-hand corner, which is, I'm selfless, but you know what? I'm below the line on being self-rich. I'm worried about other people. I'm putting them first. I'm doing things to make sure everybody else is taken care of. And so this quadrant down here is the performing quadrant. You're doing it for the right reasons. You might even be making tons of money, successful, like things are happening. You have the world's definition of success, and you're on the verge of burnout. Nobody knows what it's taking for you to hold it all together. And you have almost zero capacity for anything left in your life. And where we want to get in this thing is we want to get to a place where we're selfless, but we're self-rich. We've taken care of ourselves, where we've poured into our own journey. You can't make the leap from performing to living, right? Because when we're self-rich and we're selfless, we just show up to the world. It's not hard. You literally just living. It's this place of true authenticity. It's effortlessness because you're just being you. But the way you get there is by building capacity. That is the secret here. So we are going to get into this. And there's a stop on this journey. And the stop is, because we've kind of built this XY axis 4-quadrant image, right? We're on the right side. We're on the selfless side, the performing on the bottom, living on the top. Well, on the left side, most of us don't live in the bottom left-hand corner. That's where you're selfish and you're self-poor. That's surviving, right? I don't think your podcast listeners are most often there. Maybe you have been in your life, right? So you recognize that place of like fear, scarcity, like what do I do next? But the place we're more scared of is actually the upper left-hand quadrant. And that is where we're selfish and we're self-rich, because this is the developing quadrant. And this is where you must live to build out capacity. But we're afraid to do it because it takes us out of being selfless, which most of us are like, oh, I have to do this for other people. And it puts us in this place where I'm like, but I'm too focused on me. So that's what we're going to talk about. Is there such a thing as being too focused on yourself? Because capacity is that pathway to just living, to being authentic, to showing up to life, to finding freedom and sovereignty that's easy.
Wow. So profound. From a spiritual perspective, I think of capacity as that, we're a vessel, right? Mm-hmm. And, sometimes a vessel can have cracks in it and be leaky. We can give and pour, we can even pour into the vessel, but if we have these leaky cracks, right?
Yeah.
It can expend a lot of energy, and there's waste in that. So, from a spiritual, this is spiritual, right?
Yeah.
Like this is the intersection of business, success, personal development, and spirituality all rolled into one topic, which is why I said I was geeking out about it, because that's my jam, right?
Yep.
So what do you think about that?
Yeah. So I haven't answered your initial question yet, and we're about to right now, because I thought it was really important to understand that it's actually not easy for us to step into a place where we look at and build out capacity. I wanted to honor that it's not easy, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And that it is a stop on this journey that we actually keep coming back to. And that's why I called that quadrant the developing quadrant, because it takes work, right?
Yeah.
It does. Like you are always developing it because there are always cracks. Always.
Always.
So The way I have come to understand what capacity means is that I look at it from this perspective of body, mind, and spirit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's three pieces to the capacity, which is our vault of what we can hold. And the first part is energy. So energy is this charge in your battery. This is your body. How do you show up? What's fuel you're putting into your system? Are you putting things like alcohol or drugs in it? Are you exercising? Are you getting enough sleep? Are you taking care of your body and having enough energy just to show up to life? And what does that tank look like? What's your capacity within, the energy of your body? The second piece is attention, which is your mind. So body, mind, spirit, energy, and attention being your mind. And that is, what is your ability to actually implement your intentions, to take that spotlight of like where you're putting your attention and focus it on what matters most versus the monkey mind going 1,000 miles an hour, you having zero tools on how to calm it or tame it down or focus it or put it at bay and silence it. What is your ability? What's your capacity for attention in your life? And the last one being spirit or heart is presence, right? So we have energy, attention, and presence. And presence is that quality people feel when you walk in the room, that you don't have to vomit all over them about what you do, who you are. There's no covert contracts about, you needing them to make you feel good or validated in some sort of way. So for me, capacity in this body, mind, spirit way is about your your energy, your attention, and your presence. And when we focus on those three things and we build out and we develop our capacity in that way, everything else shifts in our life. And time is actually a byproduct of it, right?
Ooh.
It is the interest that is created in that account as you grow the capacity of it.
Wow, that's fascinating. Can you expound on that a little bit further? Because, I mean, you and I both know time is our greatest resource, right? And we can't get more of it necessarily, right? But you're saying that time is actually a byproduct of expanding your capacity. Can you expound on that a little bit?
Yeah. This took me a lot of
You're
years
distilling
to,
like 20 years of wisdom into a
yeah.
sentence. I get it.
Um, you know, when I first read Dan Martell's Buy Back Your Time, this concept of course, creating more time in your life is really sexy and appealing. And he's done a really great job there are mechanistic ways to create more time in your life. And he's nailed it. But it's only part of the picture because what isn't told to you in that sort of methodology is how sustainable is it? What did it take for you to actually do those tactics, that blocking and tackling things of offloading and delegating and shifting things in your life that created more time? Then what do you do with it? Where when you work on the capacity side of things, the energy, the attention, the presence I talked about, you're not seeking things externally in the same way anymore. You're not looking for your partner or your job to validate your identity as a human anymore. This is the spiritual piece that comes in, right?
Yeah.
And when you don't need those things, it is insane the amount of time we've spent either in mental masturbation, spinning in loops, right? About who's going to say this, how are they going to say it, what are they thinking about me? Like playing these like games over and over again in our head. And when you walk into a room, whether it's a boardroom or whether it's a bedroom or your kitchen, when you don't have expectations of everything happening in this certain way of exactly how you need it to happen and who's going to show up and what are they going to say, and you let life flow and you're showing up whole, complete, fully in this self-rich way, this abundant way, this overflowing way, everything goes faster, easier. People take care of their own shit. They get to show up as their full self because you're no longer the dancing monkey who's saying, look at me, look at me. The amount of time you create that you didn't even try to is off the charts.
I love this. And, on so many levels, you know, I think this is a point of self reflection for everybody listening right now. Because I remember so much of my life wondering what people thought of me, and it really consumed me. And I feel like I'm not alone in this, right? I feel like so many of us are constantly thinking, what would they think of me? And we walk into a room and we're performing
Mhm.
and we're trying to be the one who's the loudest one, who says how great we are, all of our accomplishments, when it's not about that at all. And if we spend all of our time doing it, we spin around in a circle like a hamster wheel, and we wonder why we can't get anything done. And it's mentally exhausting, Brent, isn't it?
Yeah. And for those listening going, I hear this, I kind of maybe sort of get it, and
Yep.
I'm scared shitless that if I let go of the grip of life too much, my business will fail, the money will go away, the stories I've, spun for 20 years about who I am, like my partner won't like me or they'll see me differently. And none of those things are actually true.
Yeah.
They don't, let me rephrase it. They don't have to be true. Right. And I recognize that they're real fears. I still have pieces of them today, and I've had to spend a lot of years working through them because they're by, by us high performers, controlling things and gripping and making sure they happen. Like, it has created our current level of success. And it's also what we're drowning in.
Wow, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Yeah.
Um, this is interesting because from a spiritual perspective, if I am constantly seeking affirmation from other people, if I'm constantly seeking external validation and approval, that's a leaky vessel. That's a vessel that doesn't generate its own energy. It's reliant on the energy of others to fulfill it. And the thing I know about other people is that people are going to disappoint you. And if you're reliant on the all of your worth as a human being on external validation and approval, it's not going to be a very fulfilling life. It's going to be a very scarce life. It's going to be one of those lives you're constantly chasing instead of just embodying and surrendering to.
Yeah. Yeah. There is no one direct cookie cutter, like, if you follow steps 1, 2, 3, you too can have this capacity. It doesn't exist, right?
Right.
So I can only share, this isn't advice, this is just experience of what worked or what I had to go through in my life. And as I stepped out of this career of 20 years of building businesses, being an entrepreneur, sitting in the CEO role, building 7 and 8 figure companies, doing an IPO, happened to have failed, um, having a marriage with 2 daughters and seeing that get blown up after almost 20 years. What I found is that I had to pause in life and just get silent for a minute, because the answers were no longer going to come from me. Right. I had used up all of my own Brent's a genius resource, because there's only so much our ego can get us through in life. And as I sat in silence and I had brought in a meditation practice in my life, because I needed something to change, because coming home and having a couple of beers or numbing out on whatever it is that's your pleasure, it gets old after a while and it doesn't solve problems. So what came through in that silence for me is that I needed to write a book, and I rejected the heck out of it because I'm not a writer. Just, it wasn't something I, needed to do. But as I let go and I let it happen and it came through me, what this book was, this title kind of came through. I don't know where it came from. My higher self, you could call it the Holy Spirit, somewhere bigger than me. And the book is called Papercuts, The Art of Self-Delusion. And what it ended up being for me, and what I get to share in there and invite people into, is that Einstein said this world is an illusion, albeit a persistent one. And at first I'm like, what is he talking about? I didn't understand it. And what I've come to know today is that experientially, what's around us, the candle in your background, us looking at each other, through this video screen, the sounds that are happening in our background, and even this conversation, it's an experience. But what does it mean? This is where our agency comes in. We get to interpret what this means, right? I could have this exact same conversation with somebody else and be like, you're stupid and crazy. And you're going, well, this is really interesting and cool and touches the spiritual stuff. Because that's your interpretation of what's happening right now. But that's your agency. And that's what I had lost. I had given it up. I had stopped saying, well, if that's possible, what else is possible? So this play on words of like this world's an illusion. If we're interpreting it, then our interpretation is a delusion. Now, the world has a negative connotation of delusion, but why? It just means it's not real. How many times have you either voted for a political candidate, looked back on a intimate relationship you've had, or some position you've held in life, and 5-10 years later, you're like, yeah, I see. The opposite might be true. How is that possible if the first way you interpreted it wasn't a delusion?
It's a good point. Yeah.
So my question is, and kind of what I invite people into in this journey that I went through in this book is, if we can suspend, normal belief around these words for a minute, and the world really is an experiential illusion, right? It's tangible, but then we get to interpret it however we want. So choose your delusion. Choose the one that serves you in the highest way. And if you don't if this one feels gross, and like, oh, I hate this. Cool. Pause. Invite in a whole different perspective. And then lock that in, at least for now.
Wow. That's, a power of, visualization too. Just, picturing something that has yet to be in your life, right? It's a little delusional. But wow, is it powerful? Wow, does it get you to the person you want to become faster? Wow, does it get you to the outcome you desire faster? Whatever that is, whatever that looks like for you. I mean, I'm a big believer in this. So much wisdom there, Brent. I mean, I want to talk a little bit about your book because I love the title, Papercuts. Why that title? Why that title?
Honestly, the way the book came through was day one. I stepped out of my CEO role pretty much November 30th on 2002. And I was going to go back into immediately looking for another job, another career. And my daughter's like, pause, Dad. It's the holidays, it's Christmas. You've been at this for a decade. Pause. And so I did. And it was a couple days before New Year's that in my meditation, that's when it came through, you're going to write a book. And I said, no, thanks, God. And the second day I was like, yeah, you're going to write a book. I was like, no, thanks, God. The third day, which was with New Year's Eve, it was like, you're going to write a book and here's the title.
Wow.
So I journaled the title, but I had no idea what it meant. So it took me sitting with it for almost a month to really understand it, and then allow the messaging and the conversations to come through that make up what this is about. But what I found is, in life, so many of us are chasing the big T trauma. A lot of people are turning to plant medicine these days. We're sitting on the couch for, a therapist couch for 10 years. And we're looking for where did I go? Where did I take that why in the road in my life? Like that big singular why. I didn't go left, I went right. Or maybe whatever else the trauma is. Maybe it was abuse. Maybe it could be a million things, right? And maybe those things happened. They probably did. But that's not what I found actually derailed things. It was the 100 times a day, me either playing the victim and not knowing it, or choosing things that didn't serve me and locking in an interpretation of a situation, a life, a conversation, what this person meant, how they were really, what I know today is most people, whatever they say, and if it feels harmful, it's actually about them, right?
Yeah.
But it feels like it's about us. Like letting those things in, those are paper cuts. And not all wounds bleed. And that's why it's hard to see them. But you look back after a few years and you're like, what? Why does my arm hurt? Oh, you've been cutting it in the same spot, just micro cuts 1,000 times. You ready to stop yet? You done? Nope.
Yes.
Okay, let's keep going.
Yes. These ruminating thoughts that we have about conversations, Brent, that never exist.
Yeah.
Right? And we love to replay them constantly like a movie in our minds, right? Don't we? And all of this expends time, expends energy, expends resources, and ultimately does not expand our capacity to hold more, right? So I want to talk a lot about this actually because I coach people one-on-one, and this is a topic that comes up often. People say they want to go somewhere. Maybe it's a leadership role. Maybe they want to start a business. Maybe they want to write a book or start a podcast or whatever, right? But they let a past version of themselves or a past event or something that is happening that is creating this mentality of perpetual victimization
Mm-hmm.
dictate present and future outcomes and choices and habits and all of these things. And ultimately, it prevents them from saying yes to their calling. And it's not helping serve anyone, including themselves, right? So, this is something that I hear all the time. And, it's one thing for me as a coach to say, okay, well, we need to increase our capacity and stop dwelling on these negative thoughts and rumination and victimization. But how does somebody go from that mindset, that current mindset of like being that, professional victim, no offense to anybody out there, to expanding their capacity and choosing to align with their purpose and actually doing it, writing the book just like you did?
Yeah. The answer is probably not one most people want to hear, because it's the most difficult thing I've ever done, and it's so stupid simple. And it's this process of letting go.
Yeah,
And this means different things to different people, and the journey is wildly different for people. But this is where I don't know how to do this work without having some level of spirituality. And maybe you follow a religion, or maybe you're, spiritual, non-religious, or doesn't matter. As long as you know that there is something bigger than yourself, whatever that looks like for you, then you actually have the ability, the capacity to do this work. And the work is surrendering, letting go to the universe, to God, to your higher self, that something out there is holding us, is shepherding us through this life, is looking out for us and sees things that we can't see. And for me, that's why I brought in a meditation practice. Other people do prayer, there's silent retreats. Again, this is why people go into, psilocybin and other plant medicines to try to just, cheat code and short circuit the access to this stuff, even though that's not long-term sustainable. It's seeing that we're not the chief to our kingdom, right? So
absolutely.
when we can start there, then it's this daily practice of letting go of, I'm not in control. I don't see all things. Starting to let go of fear, releasing that to, whatever you believe is bigger than us. And that right there sets the stage for us to drop into expanding our capacity in the way that is meant to or feels good to us in our way. Because there's 1,000 ways to do it, and it starts with letting go. It starts with surrendering.
Let go of those old stories, those old narratives, right?
Well, you can't even, like, that's a second, that's level 2, because
Oh,
level
that's
1
level
is
two.
how do I trust myself and what's bigger than me enough
Mm-hmm.
to let go of those stories in the first place,
Wow. That's
right?
not easy.
No, but you'll never get there. You'll never start to let go of those stories. And it may take a decade to let some of them go, and eventually it might take a day. But it's knowing that this world doesn't end with you.
Mm, that's so powerful. And I love the fact that, none of us are alone on this journey, right?
Oh.
We're not alone. There is a higher power out there, and it does require, that surrender. One of the most honest prayers I ever prayed was when I became a entrepreneur, right? Because entrepreneurship is the ultimate personal development machine. It really shows who you are. It's a mirror. And I prayed a very honest prayer, and I said, all right, God, what I want for myself sucks, and this isn't working. So uh I just want what you want for me from now on. So whatever that looks like. That was not an easy point for me to get to, because I felt like the ego was holding on, right? And it wasn't easy to surrender, but my gosh, was it beneficial? My gosh, was it freedom?
Mm.
It felt like freedom for the first time, the first time I had actually exhaled. Right? Does that resonate with you?
100%. I mean, this is why, man, I see so many entrepreneurs and, you know, driven high performers like white knuckling their experience, right?
Yes.
And this is why they have no capacity, is because you literally are like, first of all, when you let go, it's just, you expand into it.
Yes.
Everything just becomes easier. This is why, breath work, thank goodness, is becoming a tool that a lot of people are becoming trained in and used to and incorporating in their daily life, because it just internally just starts to show you what's even possible when we just shallow breathe our way through life, right? And there's plenty of books written on this that just shows that that's actually the cause of a lot of our health problems. But it starts there, and you start to let go. And like in my own journey, similar to you, Tara, I've wanted to control. Okay, well, now that I'm not doing this, running businesses in the same way, and I've got this journey to share with the world, I'm going to build a business around it, and I'm going to do it in this way. And it's like, wait a minute, I'm doing the same thing, trying to control how it comes out.
Yeah.
This message, this content, this invitation to others to step into their own capacity work. Why can't it be done at the grocery store, in a BNI meeting, in a, at church, wherever? Like, maybe I go, maybe my calling is, I don't think so, but I'm having to surrender to that. I might be called to go take a desk job somewhere, and my calling is to then go impact the 100 people beneath me. It's not what I think it is, but how do I know? Like, can I surrender to this? Can come through in so many ways, and it doesn't have to be my way.
That is powerful. I think so many times we have our minds wrapped around this one outcome. But what I've realized is this or better. Because so often we have this one thing that we think it's it. It's this or nothing. But what if it's, instead of this or nothing, what if it's this or better?
Yeah.
What if there's something even better that, again, God has planned for you, for your life, for your business, for whatever, but you're so stuck on the lesser that you can't accept and step into the better.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's my outcome. That's the outcome. It's this or better. And you say what you want, but it's okay to have that high intention, low attachment. Because I think sometimes we get so attached to something that something better comes along, we don't even see it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So I don't even think you know this, Tara, but like the big picture methodology that I have developed and work around for this in my life, I call it osmotic leadership.
I love that
And
word.
yeah,
That's
and
very cool.
thanks. We've been talking about all the pieces of it already
Hmm.
because to get to this upper right hand quadrant of living where we're self-rich and we're selfless, it's not this like sometimes osmosis can be looked at, especially as applied to leadership, as like lazy leadership, like a sales manager having a new sales rep right along with him and saying, just pick up what I'm doing and you'll learn. Like, that's lazy leadership. That's not what I'm talking about. But when we do like what it takes to get into this living quadrant where we are self-rich, right? We're at a surplus. We are abundant in how we've filled ourselves up. Like, our capacity is massive. Our energy, our attention, our presence is just overflowing. And we apply it in this selfless way. It means we walk into a room and we're not the ones talking. We don't have the ideas. We are curious with those around us. We're calling forward the genius that lives inside of everybody else around us. And we're so full here that we can leak out in the best way onto other people through this natural diffusion, which is what osmosis is. And there's no effort. We're not forcing things. We're not quote teaching things. How we show up, people are just like, I want more of that. And I love the way I get to show up when I'm around them. I get to be my best self. This is awesome. Like, that is what osmotic leadership is. And that's why it gives you your time back, because it's not effortful. Right? Your effort was on you showing up as your best self. You don't have to worry about when people are ready to step up for themselves. You just show them it's possible and that you accept
Oh my
them
God.
as they are.
I love that. I love that. It's for me, it's every person that I interact with, I want them to have a perception of increase. Just just because they were around me, just because I was there. Not because I showed up and performed a certain way, but just by being here with me, that you feel that you have a perception of increase. That's like the goal. That's kind of what I live by. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
Am I
You were
speaking
putting
your
it into
language?
your own words, and yes, the way I describe it isn't going to land for everybody, but the
Mhm.
core concept, you absolutely get it. Like, I sense you feel it in your body, right? You know how you live it in your life. I love it.
Oh, I love that. And, the leadership really is leaving every situation better than you found it, leaving every person better than you found them. And it starts with small acts, right? And it could be as simple as looking somebody in the eye and giving them a compliment, a genuine compliment. It could be your employees genuinely wanting to know about them, right? Not just the work and the output they produce, but who they are as a human being, their character. Your customers, your clients, right? Giving them that perception of increase. It's
I,
huge.
I'm going to give you a little insight into what I've been working on, because this is resonating really deeply with me. Um, I had I felt called to write a second book, and I've got a few ideas, and I don't know how it's going to come through exactly yet. But one of the breadcrumbs I left myself when I had written before was I wrote down two words, and it was delegating genius. And I wasn't sure what I'd written down, and I know that there's you know a lot of work out there around stepping into your genius, honoring other people's genius. Um, but it doesn't mean it in this intellectual way, right? That's been thought through, and I agree with parts of it. It's almost like, let's take what you're great at and let's utilize that piece of what you bring to the table. And I get that, and there's value to it. And what what I'm talking about is that 3,000 years ago, the Greeks and the Romans, they actually thought everybody had a genius. Not that you were a genius, but you had a genius. So what does that mean? The interpretation of the word genius actually means guardian or guardian spirit. And so if you Google it, it doesn't come up with this, but what my interpretation is, and I'll tell you a little bit more about what they thought about this, is that what they were speaking to is it was their way to talk about your higher self, or for those that are, religious, maybe the Holy Spirit, right? However you look at that internal guide, that internal piece that's bigger than you. Because what they saw in people was that there was this guardian spirit that you were born with and that died with you, but ultimately had your back from this ethereal place along your journey. And it ended up getting bastardized along the way, because then they saw, well, wait a minute, why are some people able to tap into it, trust it, maybe more successful in life? And so around the time of, like, 2,000 years ago, around the times of Christ, the guardian, they would actually keep the patriarchal name. They would name it and keep the patriarchal lineage of it, saying, oh, well, your family has this guardian with them. So it already started to become something for your family. And then eventually we turned it into this intellectual thing that you're a genius. But that's not what it started as. It started as an individual guardian spirit that every human had. And so why I bring this up and why I think it's interesting is that how often do we see that in other people? See the actual higher self that is possibly being occluded by their ego, or they're afraid to bring it forward, but like that pure, beautiful essence that lives inside of everybody, and finding a way to not only honor and see it, but unlock it. So that's what comes through, and not all these other filters and fear and bullshit that we all bring to the table every day. How do you get somebody's actual genius, their guardian spirit, their higher self, their, this piece of them that is beautiful? How do you bring that forward in everybody and call that forward and see that and delegate to that, not to a task, not to some intellectual thing?
Wow. That's so much wisdom there. A big piece of that is love.
Yeah.
It's love. And I don't think we've heard that word since we were little, right? We've heard that word since we were babies. Love, love, love. But it's so deep. It's such a deep principle. And if we can look at every single human being, because we all judge, right? It's a condition of having a brain and being human, right? But if we can look at somebody and instead of judgment, or if judgment comes up, which it will, and it can, sure. And, when you start to feel judgment for somebody, also start to find a couple things you love about them. You know what? I'm judging him or her because of this, but gosh, they have beautiful blue eyes. And I love the way they dress. Oh my gosh. And they're so smart. And look they've got a book, and that's actually a book I wanted to read. Maybe I'll ask them about it. All of a sudden that judgment starts to turn into curiosity. And the curiosity can turn into friendship. The friendship can lead to love. So I think that's a powerful thing, as leaders, not just for, the people that work for us, again, for our clients, our consumers, but also for ourselves. We can judge ourselves pretty well too. But instead of, when those judgments come up, all right, you know what? Let's replace that with some love and watch what happens. What do you think about that?
I mean, in a circular way, you're tying back to what we were talking about with regards to the art of self-delusion, right?
Yeah, that's right. The art of self-delusion. I love that.
Other perspective, it's a healthier delusion. The story of what, that person looks like they're annoying and being stupid and whatever. And yet ultimately it is stepping into love and seeing the other side of things. And it's also seeing that everybody's just scared. Right.
Yeah.
And so we put on these masks to protect ourselves, to try to control things, to try to make it so we're not hurt. And it comes through really, really ugly sometimes. And we have the ability to say, That's not what's really inside of them. And I'm not talking about like violating your boundaries and accepting maybe unhealthy behavior, but it doesn't mean you have to see like that is them, because it's not them. Because at our core is love, unconditional love for all of these things. And this is why I play around with these fun things like, what does genius mean 3,000 years ago? Because for me, it helps me remember we are bigger than ourselves. We are part of something bigger than ourselves. And this body, this meat suit, and the ego that drives it, it chooses the unhealthy delusions too often.
Mm.
And those of us that have built capacity, we can see beyond it. And then we osmotically, by showing up, by not accepting or reacting to those people, we show them it's possible to step outside of that mask.
Wow. We be the leader they
Well,
want to.
that's what real leadership is, right?
That's what real leadership is. That's right. Wow. Brent, I could talk to you for days, and I'm sure I'll have you back on the show. Because I think this will be one of those episodes where people say, can you bring Brent back? That was really good. I want some more of that. But what would be one piece of advice that you have for somebody out there right now listening to this that says, I'm ready. I'm ready to step into that leadership role. I'm ready to step into the best version of myself. I'm ready to start a company. I'm done with the old narratives. I'm done with the stories. I'm going to divorce that, and I'm going to step into.
Yeah.
What would you say to somebody like that?
Well, I don't believe in advice, and that's a whole nother conversation, but I will invite you into getting silent with yourself. And I'm going to also leave you with my number one tactic for that.
Sure.
So I'm going to leave you with that tool. But getting silent with yourself, whatever that looks like for you, meditation, prayer, going on a walk in nature. For me, sometimes honestly, it happens over chopping vegetables for dinner. Without no
Working out
music,
for
no
me.
podcast, no
Yeah.
TV in the background, just zone out.
Mm-hmm.
But get silent and ask yourself, is whatever I'm thinking around this right now, is that the only possible reason, solution, interpretation? Or could I have a better delusion, right? And invite the possibility of that in. And how to do this in the moment, the number one thing I found works for most people are timeouts. And it's not, at least what I think of when I hear that is like, oh, you put your kid in a timeout, or you go take a break and you step out of a situation. That's not what it is. It's more along the lines of what we have seen modeled for us in society as the number one tool used by sports. A coach has no better tool to shift the momentum of a game, save a player from getting hurt, make sure possession isn't lost, take something that's going awry and potentially just put it on ice or give it a chance to actually cool down a minute. And it only takes 60 seconds. Now that's what they get. Like NBA gets 7 a game. How often in your life have you said, I'm in a meeting, I'm talking to my husband, I'm driving my car, have you been like, no, the next 60 seconds I'm just going to pause? Maybe for me it helps to connect with my body, put my hand on my heart, just take some breaths and step back into that exact situation 60 seconds later. 99% of the people I talk to, they're like, yeah, I don't do that even once a day. Why? You want to start building capacity?
Yeah.
Just do it a couple of times a day. We're talking 60 seconds. Emotions, which it's taught there's 6 of them, 6 core emotions. They happen to us. We can't control them. Our feelings are our interpretation of the emotions, right? We have the ability, a feeling is a response to an emotion. We have the ability to choose that. Doesn't feel like it sometimes, but we do. Emotions only hit us for 60 to 90 seconds before they flow through us unless we react. Take a time out. Pause.
I love this advice because the alternative to pausing is reactivity. And when we react, we lose power. But when we pause, we reclaim it, right? We're able to get out of that fight or flight mode and into a position of authority, into a position of power and higher intellect, right? Getting out of that reactivity mode.
Well,
Because
this
so
is
much
the
of our
whole
life.
capacity.
Mm,
Do you have the capacity to
yeah.
respond instead of react?
That is a great question to end this podcast with. Do you have the capacity, right, to respond instead of react? I will leave everybody with that cliff note because this is going to be a part 2. I can feel it. Brent, thank you so much for being a guest on this episode of Grasp Confidence. Thank you, everyone who listened into this show. Guys, if you love this, if this helped you, share it with your audiences. Because I believe everyone out there listening to this show right now, you have a calling, you have something inside of you, a desire to be more, do more, accomplish more, inspire more, create influence and impact in the world in a positive way. This conversation regarding capacity can help you do just that. So share this with your audiences, leave a review on Apple with your favorite takeaway from what Brent said, and let's build this community of confidence crusaders, really. We're confidence crusaders together. Thank you so much. We will catch you on the next episode. Take care.